If I told you that you have the power to save or extend a child's life, would you be interested? What if I told you that initially all you would need to do was swab your mouth with a few Q-tips and mail them in? Saving someone's life with a few Q-tips. I know what you're thinking. Too good to be true, right? Well, it's not. And you could not only help save a child's life, but an adult as well. This power that is completely in your control would be registering with bethematch.org to see if you could be paired up with someone that needs a bone marrow transplant. It's a painless and simple procedure that involves swabbing your mouth with some Q-tips to capture some skin cells. You seal them up in a pouch and mail it in. Once the skin cells are typed, they are entered into the National Marrow Donor Program database awaiting to be matched. Me and my wife and our family can relate to this on a personal level. First off, I want to let you know that this didn't have a happy ending. My wife and I lost our 15-year-old daughter after a 3-year battle with lymphoma in 2016. But if it was not for the efforts of a young lady in Colorado who graciously donated her bone marrow, we would have had much less time with her on this earth. During this speech, I will introduce to you 3 of the more common types of cancers and diseases that can be treated with a bone marrow transplant, how donors are matched, what the sources of for the bone marrow transplant, and finally, why you should join the bone marrow registry. Every 3 minutes, someone is diagnosed with a blood cancer. The most common blood cancers treated with bone marrow transplants are leukemia and lymphoma. In fact, both of these account for over 8% of all new cancer cases for 2016. Depending on the different types of cancers and the specific mutations, there will require different types of chemotherapy. Unfortunately, if this chemotherapy doesn't work, the only other option is a much more intensive form of chemotherapy followed by a bone marrow transplant. A disease that I'm sure all of you have heard that affects mostly African Americans and Hispanics is sickle cell disease. There are approximately 90 to 100,000 people currently in the United States fighting this disease, and unfortunately the only cure for it is either a bone marrow or a stem cell transplant. Now that you know a few of the most common cancers and diseases, let's take a look at what it takes to match up a recipient with a donor. When matching a recipient with a donor, the most important factor is called the human leukocyte antigen, or the HLA tissue type. Now, HLAs are proteins that are found in almost all of your cells. Your immune system uses these kind of like your home address or social security number, and it helps identify which cells are yours and which cells are not. A simple swab test helps determine your specific HLA profile, and when that information is entered into the national database, the system then can determine the best match. A person gets their HLAs half from their parents, and because of this, one person's parents unfortunately is never able to be a matching donor. One of the things that surprised our family is typically you will find that siblings are only a match 25% of the time. And this was certainly the case for our family. We had all 3 of our younger children tested and none of them were a match for our daughter. So what you end up seeing is that 70% of all bone marrow transplant donors come from an unrelated person. This is why it's so important for you to become a donor. And it's especially true if you're a minority or are multiracial. The big issue here is that the number of Americans that are currently multiracial in the United States is 6.9%. And if you compare that with only 3% of the folks that are currently registered in the database as being multiracial, you see that there's a huge gap there, and it makes it much harder for these groups to find a matching donor. Now that you understand the matching process, let's go through the 3 different sources of bone marrow. One of the most common is called peripheral blood stem cells, or PBST. Now this type of marrow is harvested intravenously, much like you would donate plasma. You're hooked up intravenously, your blood is cycled through a machine for a couple hours where it pulls out only the stem cells, the rest of the blood is returned back to you. It generally takes about 2 hours, and after that there is really no recovery period, so that's the nice thing about that process. The next form of marrow is actual bone marrow collection. Now this is much more involved. It requires general anesthesia. You go under in the hospital in an operating room, and they actually go in and take marrow from each side of your pelvis. It generally requires an overnight stay in the hospital, mainly for observation. Most folks have a little bit of discomfort and pain for the next couple of days, but generally it's fatigue. It usually takes about 2 weeks for folks to feel like they're back to their normal selves. Finally, there's umbilical cord blood, and this is something that's typically thrown away, but it is very rich in blood-forming cells. Definitely don't want you to confuse this with the very controversial embryonic stem cell research. This is not the case. After the baby is born and everybody's happy and the mother is healthy, they actually go in after the cord's been cut and take the cells out of the umbilical cord. Now that you're familiar with the different sources of marrow, I wanted to let you know just how easy it truly is to save someone's life by donating. The biggest reason to join the registry is the fact that it's easy and completely painless. You can register online at bethematch.org. After you join, you're mailed a sample kit with instructions. They tell you how to swab. They supply you the swabs. You go in and swab the inside of your mouth and capture some of your skin cells. You seal it up, mail the kit in with your samples, and then it's tested. And that's all you do. You sit back and wait. There are so many people that you could help with your donation. Many of these people have run out of options, and really bone marrow transplant becomes a life or death situation. Patients' likelihood of finding a match are very, very good. According to the Match Registry, an estimated range from 66 to 97 people can be matched based on ethnic background. So now you can see just how simple it is to join the registry. I want to encourage you all to take a few minutes this evening to go online for some research on the National Marrow Donor Program. There are multiple agencies aside from bethematch.org that pair up with this database, and you can find, I'm certain that you'll be able to find a match that will fit for your needs. I'm sure that this is especially true for those that are multiracial, Hispanic, African American folks. Just a small increase in registration of these groups would have a tremendous impact on the donor pool because there are so few available in the database at this time. This modest and gracious act has the possibility to bring you much joy to a family in need. I know my family reaped the rewards because of the selfless act of this young lady in Colorado. Me and my wife are both now registered, and I look forward to the day when I get the call about being able to be a possible match for someone in need. Thanks.